In every shadow, there's a story waiting to be uncovered. Some think the truth hides in silence, but I believe every clue has a voice. I am Baban Laidi, your guide through mysteries, secrets, and the mind of those who think they can't be caught. Welcome to my channel, thousands meter deep into Despair's Valley, where every case begins with a question and ends with the unexpected. Today's case, Echoes of Vengeance. Tonight's mystery takes us into the heart of a locked room murder. Detective Adrian Blake prided himself on always seeing the truth behind the lies. His sharp instincts and unmatched intellect had made him a legend in his field. But this one, had him doubting himself. Henry Blackwell, a wealthy and influential businessman, had been found dead in his penthouse, his skull crushed by a heavy marble bust of an angel that lay beside him. The windows were locked, the doors secured from the inside. It looked like a fit of rage, a sudden, brutal attack. But there was something chillingly meticulous about the scene, something that nagged at Adrian, though he couldn't yet place it. The prime suspect, Michelle Wren, had been Blackwell's mistress and had recently been seen arguing with him in public. She had a motive. Blackwell had been threatening to cut her off after a tumultuous affair, and everyone in the town knew she had a fiery temper. Michelle's fingerprints were all over the crime scene, on the bust, and on the glass of whiskey she had poured herself during the argument. It seemed like an open and shut case. Too open, too shut. But the more Adrian dug into Michelle's life, the more he realized that she wasn't as cold-hearted as she appeared. She was volatile, yes, but something about her reaction to Blackwell's death seemed genuine. She was shocked, devastated, even as though she had never expected things to go this far. Still, the evidence against her was damning. Adrian had faced clever criminals before, but this time, the game felt different. Someone had crafted the perfect crime, placing Michelle in a trap she couldn't escape. As much as Adrian hated to admit it, the killer was smarter than him. Whoever it was, they had anticipated his every move. And then there was the victim himself, Henry Blackwell, a man known for his charm and generosity on the surface, but with the darkness underneath. He had enemies, many of them. His wife, Emma, had died in a tragic accident 5 years ago. A fall down the stairs that had been ruled an accident, though whispers of foul play had circulated. Henry had mourned her death publicly, but those close to him knew he had moved on too quickly, his affairs becoming more frequent and more reckless. As Adrian stood in Blackwell's grand penthouse, he replayed the details in his mind. The scene was too perfect. Everything pointed directly at Michelle, but it felt orchestrated. almost like a chessboard, every piece meticulously placed. Days passed, and Adrian's frustration grew. Michelle's trial was looming, and despite his unease, he had nothing to exonerate her. Each lead brought him back to the same dead end. It was then, in the quiet of the night, that Adrian remembered a small detail. Something seemingly insignificant. A photograph. He had seen it in Blackwell's study the day of the murder. A portrait of Blackwell with a man and a woman. The man was smiling, but there was something haunting in his eyes. The woman, Adrian had recognized her. She was Emma, Blackwell's late wife. The man, however, was a ghost, someone Adrian had never met. His instincts flared. Who was this man? And why was he in a photograph with Henry and Emma? Adrian tracked down the portrait's origin and discovered the man's identity. Noah Hawke, a former professor and a philanthropist, widely regarded as one of the most kind-hearted men in the city. Noah Hogg had been friends with Henry and Emma for years, but he had vanished from public life after Emma's death, living in quiet isolation. The deeper Adrian dug into Noah's life, the more tragic his story became. Noah and Emma had been close, perhaps too close, and rumors hinted that Henry had known about it. A suspicion began to take root in Adrian's mind, dark and gnawing. Could Henry Blackwell have killed his own wife? Adrian's intuition told him to look into Emma's death once again. What he found shook him to the core. Buried in the police records was a statement from a maid who had left shortly after the incident. She had overheard an argument between Henry and Emma the night she died. Emma had confronted Henry about his illicit business dealings, threatening to go public with what she knew. Hours later, she was dead. Henry had covered it up, made it look like a tragic accident, and continued his life as though nothing had happened. But someone else had known the truth. Noah Hawke. He had loved Emma, perhaps even more than Henry had. And when she died, something inside Noah had broken. Adrian felt the pieces coming together, but the picture they formed was far darker than he had imagined. Noah Hawke had been biding his time, waiting, planning the perfect revenge. And now, after years of silence, he had finally acted. The confrontation came when Adrian visited Noah's secluded home. The older man sat in his living room, surrounded by mementos of a life long gone. He looked up as Adrian entered, his face calm, almost serene. "You have come to ask about Henry," Noah said softly, as though he had been expecting him. "You are a good detective, Adrian. I wasn't sure if you'd figure it out." Adrian felt a chill run down his spine. "You killed him," he said, though his voice lacked the usual certainty. There was no gloating, No satisfaction on Noah's face, just sorrow. He killed her, Noah whispered, his voice trembling. Emma, she knew too much, and he pushed her down those stairs. I loved her, and I couldn't stop him. Adrian's mind raced. Noah had framed Michelle perfectly, meticulously. The fingerprints, the public argument, the carefully planted evidence, it had all pointed to her. And for a while, even Adrian had believed it. But Noah was a master at playing the long game. He had waited, years in silence, letting his hatred fester until the moment was right. But why frame Michelle? Adrian couldn't shake the question. Noah was smarter than that. He had to know that Adrian would eventually uncover the truth. Then it hit him. Michelle wasn't innocent either. She knew, didn't she? Adrian asked, his voice quieter now. About Henry, about what he did to Emma. Noah nodded. She knew, and she did nothing. She let it happen, covered for him. Even after Emma died, she deserved to be punished too. Adrian stared at the older man, feeling the weight of the tragedy that had unfolded. Noah had orchestrated everything with such precision, driven not by greed, but by a pain so deep it had consumed him. He had turned from a good man into a killer, all for revenge. But despite everything, despite the brilliance of his plan, there was no evidence tying Noah to the crime. Michelle was still on trial, and Noah could easily walk away, leaving behind nothing but whispers. And yet, Adrian saw the conflict in Noah's eyes. The love he had felt for Emma had once been pure, something that had guided him in life. But now it was twisted, tangled with desire for vengeance. Emma would have never wanted this. Noah's eyes filled with tears as he looked up at Adrian, his voice breaking. She wouldn't have wanted this. I can hear her telling me to stop, to turn back. But I am too far gone, aren't I? After a long pause, Noah stood and walked towards Adrian, his hands trembling. I wanted him to suffer. I wanted him to know what it felt like to lose everything. But now, I don't know who I am anymore. He held out his wrists, waiting for the cuffs. Adrian hesitated. There was no satisfaction in this victory, no sense of triumph. Noah had been a better man once before the tragedy that had unraveled his life. But now there was only pain and loss. As Adrian placed the cuffs on Noah's wrists, he felt a deep sense of sorrow. This wasn't just about solving a case. It was about the devastation that revenge left in its wake. A story where everyone had lost, even the victor. Noah went quietly, surrendering not because Adrian had beaten him, but because, in the end, Emma's memory had saved him from himself. The battle of intellects had ended, but it left a scar on Adrian's soul. Even the best detectives couldn't escape the weight of the truth, and sometimes real victories weren't the ones won in the court.